Josh Eccles was diving 4 miles off the coast of Jupiter, Florida, when he suddenly felt something hit him. What he found underwater left him frozen. A female shark, nearly 10 feet long, had just pushed his shoulder with her snout. Naturally, he panicked. His heart raced faster than it ever had in his life. Josh was a large man, almost 6.5 feet tall and 90 kilos of pure muscle. Yet, compared to such a creature, he was as small as a child next to his father. Fortunately, his more than 5 years of diving with Emerald Dive Charters helped him stay calm and avoid being devoured. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to get inspired by real-life stories like this every day. Back to our story, Josh focused on the animal and realized it was a lemon shark, a species he had seen dozens of times over the past years. Lemon sharks are considered curious but harmless. However, the behavior of this one worried him. Even if lemon sharks are curious, this shark seemed to want to communicate something. Before he could organize his thoughts, it nudged him again. Clearly, it was there for a reason. Eccles's heart began racing again. He had been taught in training that shark attacks on humans are rare, at least in theory. But statistics mattered little when facing a predator capable of killing him. This was not a stray dog or a large feline. It was a shark. And as Josh well knew, no human can beat a shark underwater. The shark didn't seem to intend to leave. Soon it began circling closer and closer around him. Was this how his career would end? Devoured far from home? In that moment of desperation, Josh realized something. Each time the shark passed, it raised its head slightly and exposed its white belly to him. He had read that animals rarely show their belly because it is one of their most vulnerable areas. Yet this shark did it again and again. Why? Could it be that it trusted him? Josh exchanged a glance with his diving partner, who also found the shark's behavior strange. It was hypnotic, like watching a patient in an emergency room point to the spot that hurts them. His team member nodded, and Josh cautiously moved closer. Josh extended his hand toward the shark's belly very slowly to avoid scaring it. He didn't want it to think he was there to harm it. Then his fingers brushed the shark's skin, and he prayed not to hurt the animal. At that moment, he felt something unusual. There was another object on the shark's skin, something hard, metallic, not supposed to be there, a piece of metal. The shark froze instantly, as if it knew it had been understood. The piece of metal in Josh's fingers was a hook. Not the typical hook you'd use for recreational fishing. It was an industrial hook, rusty and twisted, embedded deeply in the shark's tissue. The tip barely protruded a few centimeters, making it impossible to judge its true size. Josh felt sick imagining the pain the animal must have been in. He pictured the desperation that drove such an elusive creature to seek human help, and realized the situation was more serious than he thought. Most people would have just felt pity and gone on. But Josh couldn't let the animal suffer. He quickly assessed the situation and considered the options. He wasn't exactly a veterinarian, and he couldn't expect the shark to wait while he went for help. As he debated what to do, the shark nudged him gently again, as if complaining of the pain. That was all Josh needed to act. He took a deep breath through his regulator, hoping it wasn't his last, and grabbed the cold, rusty metal of the hook. He exhaled, then pulled gently. But nothing happened. The hook didn't budge. The shark tensed but stayed in place, as if understanding they were trying to help. Calmer, Josh adjusted his grip and pulled harder. Unfortunately, the metal was fully embedded. Months, maybe even a year, could have passed since the shark swallowed the hook. Stomach acids might have pushed it slowly outward, piercing the stomach and abdominal wall. That explained why it was buried so deeply. But there was no time for hesitation. He readied himself to pull again when the shark moved sharply, forcing him to release the hook to avoid hurting it. The animal swam a few meters and disappeared into the ocean's darkness. Josh's heart raced again. Had the shark been scared? Had the rescue attempt ended before it began? Maybe he had angered it, in which case he was in danger. He looked at his diving partner, who had been filming the interaction with an underwater camera. Neither knew what to do next. The safest option would have been to leave the water, let someone else handle the shark, and move on. But Josh was not that kind of man. He waited. And waited, surrounded by nothing but the silence of the ocean. Fish swam past, and the water remained calm. There were still no signs of the shark. Just when he was about to give up, a shadow emerged behind him, and he came face to face with the injured animal again. This time, however, it behaved differently. It swam directly toward Josh, positioned itself in front of him, and exposed its belly once more. Perhaps the shark knew this would be its last chance to make the pain go away. Or perhaps not. But it was obvious it wanted Josh to try again. Josh felt a profound responsibility. If an animal with millions of years of evolution trusted him, the last thing he could do was disappoint it. He prepared to pull the hook with all his strength when he had perhaps the most dangerous idea of his life, to hold the shark by the head. Even after the shark showed its belly, he still couldn't see the hook clearly. He needed the shark to turn slightly for a better view of the wound. Summoning all his courage, he gently grabbed the shark on both sides of the head. The shark remained completely still, blindly trusting the diver. Filtered sunlight helped him see the problem clearly. The entire metal curve was embedded in its flesh. He placed his free hand on the shark's belly to stabilize himself and grabbed the hook's tip with the other hand. This time he didn't just pull. He moved it back and forth to loosen the metal. The shark shuddered, but stayed in place. He could feel the tension in the animal, its body ready to bolt at any moment. Because of rust, the metal had fused so deeply with the shark's tissue that it was as much a part of it as any fin. But then the hook began to give millimeter by millimeter. One final firm, decisive pull, and it came out completely. He looked at the hook, a massive tool designed to catch enormous fish, maybe marlins or giant tuna, as large as the palm of his hand. The shark must have swallowed it while feeding on a hooked fish, or perhaps after biting an abandoned bait in the ocean. Josh held the hook in front of his face. He couldn't leave it there and risk another animal suffering the same fate, so he kept it with him. The shark remained still for a moment, relieved that the pain was gone. What happened next surprised both divers. The shark swam directly toward Josh's partner, coming so close to the camera that its snout nearly touched the lens. Its dark, intelligent eyes looked straight at the camera, for reasons still unknown today. It seemed to want to thank not only Eccles, but the other human who had been present. Then, with a powerful flick of its tail, it swam away. Josh watched the animal leave for the last time. He knew he would never see it again, yet he felt immensely happy. He would never forget what he had just experienced. The joy of saving another living being's life was priceless. His fellow diver patted him on the shoulder, incredulous at the whole situation, and they returned to the boat. As they surfaced, they saw other sharks fading into the distance. The divers climbed aboard, filled their lungs with air, and recounted what had happened. Once the danger had passed, questions began flooding their minds. Why would a shark, a top predator, seek human help? Was it normal? Humans were responsible for the shark's predicament in the first place. It is humankind that puts hooks in the ocean, discards fishing gear that becomes deadly traps, and pollutes the waters. And yet, animals still choose to trust us. They do not understand concepts like good and evil. They think all humans are friends. Josh understood this better than anyone, and he was unwilling to let things continue as they had. He held the heavy hook in his dry palm, letting the sunlight glint off the rusted metal, and began thinking of ways to prevent other sharks from suffering the same fate. Experts estimate 100 million sharks are killed by humans each year. Among them, 73 million are killed specifically for their fins. The remaining 27 million die due to bycatch or are harvested for meat, oil, and cartilage. In comparison, only about 10 people die annually from shark attacks, a ridiculously low number compared to mosquitoes, which kill over 1 million people per year. It was time for this injustice to end. Something had to be done to change society's negative perception of sharks. Josh's companions wanted him to receive proper credit, but he did not see himself as a hero. He simply believed he had done the right thing. Fortunately, the media acknowledged it nonetheless. They spoke about it for days, praising Eccles's bravery. Experts later explained that lemon sharks, though friendly, can exert a bite force of over 300 pounds. Though their teeth are not as large as a great white's, they can still inflict serious injury. With a sudden movement or a moment of panic from the shark, Josh could have met a bitter end. But the diver respected the shark's limits. He did not bother it when it swam away. He only continued removing the hook when the shark allowed him to. That's why neither of them was injured. Time passed, and the rescue went viral. The video spread across social media, accumulating millions of views within days. Comments ranged from disbelief to absolute amazement. Some asked, "How did the shark know to ask for help?" And "Why did it trust the diver?" Another guy said, "This proves animals are far more intelligent than many think." It was crazy. One single video helped thousands see sharks differently, not as killing machines like in movies, but as noble creatures simply wanting to live without interference. Many divers have encountered them, but only a few are brave enough to touch them. As the video went viral, marine biologists began studying the case to understand the anomaly. It is well known that dolphins and whales may seek human help. However, seeing the same behavior in sharks is extremely rare. Josh might have been one of the first humans to form such a strong bond with a shark. Or maybe not. The very idea kept him awake. He wanted to learn more about his new friend in case he encountered a similar situation again. The next morning, Josh stood on the pier, wondering where the noble animal he had saved might be. He thought he saw a ripple in the water, as if the shark had followed him to shore. But he knew it was unlikely, as sharks typically inhabit deep waters. He attributed it to imagination and his desire to see it safe, and went about his day. Unfortunately, not everyone shared his enthusiasm. Some local fishermen laughed at his story. They said he was making it up for attention. Others looked at him as if he were crazy. For most, a shark was just another predator, not an animal worthy of compassion, let alone friendship. They deserved to be caught and driven to extinction. This frustration drove him to seek answers, eventually leading him to speak with an elderly marine biologist in the area, a man long retired from the field. To Josh's surprise, the old man not only believed him, but swore it wasn't the first time a lemon shark had approached a human for help. He claimed to have had the honor of saving one when he was young. Could this explain why the shark had been so sociable? According to him, lemon sharks have far more advanced cognitive abilities than other sharks. They can learn, remember, and even show individual personalities. Some are bold, others are cautious and shy. And perhaps, he said with a half-smile, some might approach a human to ask for help. At that moment, Josh realized that crossing paths with that shark at that precise moment had not been a mere coincidence. It had been destiny, but it had also been his choice. He had chosen to act when others would have looked the other way, and for that he had earned a friend for life. He said goodbye to the old man and took one last look at the ocean. Meanwhile, the rumors of his story continued to spread. Some details were lost in retelling, but the heart of the story remained intact. A diver who risked his life to save a shark. Josh's dream of raising awareness through his video had come true. The incident put ghost fishing in the spotlight, and while it didn't end the problem, it helped thousands understand it wasn't an isolated situation. As he would later learn, tons of fishing gear are lost or discarded in the ocean every year. Nets, lines, and hooks float in the water like hidden traps waiting to strike. This gear continues fishing for years, indiscriminately trapping and killing marine life. The hook in the lemon shark's belly was only one example among millions. For every animal lucky enough to find help, countless others suffer and die silently. This doesn't affect only sharks. It also affects turtles, dolphins, whales, and seabirds. Environmental groups used Josh's story to prevent more animals from meeting the same fate. At the same time, some divers who heard the story followed in Josh's footsteps, hoping for their own encounter with a majestic lemon shark. But soon they were disappointed. Lemon sharks observed from a distance, wisely choosing whom to approach. If a person's intentions aren't pure, or if divers fail to integrate properly with the ocean's calm, local wildlife avoids them. Only those who understand this universal truth can enjoy the privilege of their company. Looks like Josh gets to count himself lucky. Time passed, and life returned to normal. Locals began whispering that a shark with a scar on its belly had been seen passing by a private boat. They said it wasn't alone. It had brought some of its siblings. After inspecting a few vessels, they swam away. Divers from Emerald Dive Charters never forgot this story and continued sharing it year after year. Local dive guides admitted that the incident had radically changed their perspective on sharks. They stopped seeing them as part of the scenery and began to view them with the same affection they might show a dog. Months later, Eccles returned to the same dive site. Part of him wondered whether he would see the same lemon shark mentioned in the rumors. The odds were low. The ocean is vast and sharks migrate. But as he descended into the familiar blue, scanning the waters for the robust silhouette of a lemon shark, he came across a scene worthy of a documentary. He didn't see the same shark, but he did see several swimming gracefully, fulfilling their roles in the ecosystem. And each of them reminded him why he had chosen to spend his life beneath the waves. Perhaps the sea remained as dangerous to marine life as it had been when his adventure began. But at least he had taken the first step toward helping end ghost fishing.